Throughout history, freethinkers have outraged the religious with their wacky ideas about the virtues of free speech, reason, and, of course, eating babies. Now, God is dying, and it's time to dispose of his remains. From the pits of hell, Satan sends two puppets of the imperialist West and the Zionist Jews against God, Islam, and tiny kittens to bring you their propaganda and conspire for a new world order. This is Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment with Ali Rizvi and Armin Navabi.
Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi, and with me is Armin Navabi. Armin, hi.
Hello.
He's saying hello. He's waving as well. So before I get started, I just want to again remind everybody that this is, it's been quite a while since we're doing this now. And it's just going up and up and up, and we just really want to take this opportunity right now to thank everybody who's supported us, and that obviously includes our patrons, includes everybody who's appeared on the show, everybody who's shared it on their social media. We have a website called secularjihadist.com and a Patreon, which is patreon.com/sjme. And a Subscribestar account as well. And our goal right now, and this is what I wanted to talk about right up front, is to get to 500 patrons. Once we do that, our goal is to start translating these podcasts, because such a big part of our audience is across Muslim countries. So we want to start translating them into the languages spoken there: Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, Hindi, Bengali, Malay, Turkish, you name it. We want to try to do all of that. Yeah, I mentioned it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, anyway, so I just wanted to mention that up front. So thank you to everybody who's supporting us. And now we're going to get to the show. All right. So today we're going to be speaking to Lara. Lara is a grooming survivor from Australia. She was lured to Pakistan from Australia, where she was entrapped, she was isolated, badly abused, and much worse. We're going to let her tell her story for herself until she finally made her escape. Lara, welcome to the show. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Ali. Thanks, Armin. It's a real pleasure to be here and to have the opportunity to enlighten your audience about my story, and as a vehicle for helping other people. And hopefully it will catalyze some meaningful discourse about grooming and the issues at heart here. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, guys.
Thank you for coming on. It's actually, the honor is all ours, because I've been reading about some of the things you went through, and it's harrowing and it's heartbreaking. And, just the fact that you have the courage to come up and talk about this openly for the benefit of others who might, learn something from it, I think is just incredibly courageous, especially with some of, the kind of people out there and the kind of responses that you get sometimes. It's really brave, and it's really courageous, and it's really admirable. So I just wanted to start with, okay, can you tell us a little bit about yourself just early on?
Okay.
How you grew up and...
Sure. So I'm 30 years old now, and I'm a trained lawyer. I came from a very broken family. My closest relative is my twin sister, who I am best friends with, but... in terms of my mum and dad, it was my dad was absent, and my mum stuck around and was very abusive in many ways, and she had very abusive partners. For us, I guess abuse became part of the infrastructural norm of our house, and we never I personally never felt that I belonged there, that I was worthy of love, and it's left a legacy of mental health issues, which I would like to eschew the stigma around any mental health issues, because I unequivocally believe that it is not shameful. Like, I wouldn't be ashamed if I had cancer, so why should I be ashamed of having a mental health problem? So I think that's really important for your listeners to hear that as well. I thank you for telling me that I have courage. Some days it's difficult, but I think I would like to be a testament to the endurance of the human spirit against adversity. And I also have a lot of people to thank, like the British Pakistani Christian Association. Our president is Wilson Chowdhury, and I'm now the lead volunteer in Australia. And I'm working towards meaningful reform because I want to make lemonade from lemons. So that's, I mean, if there's any specific questions you want to ask about that, you're welcome to, but that's at an overall rubric level where I've come from. And I'm, as I said, a trained lawyer, and I'm now doing a Master's of Law. I'm going to write my thesis in grooming, and hopefully the next part of my trajectory will be to do a PhD and to actually maybe help write grooming laws, because we've noticed a lot of gaps in protocol and policy. So I hand it back to you.
So we've had a lot of, we've read a lot of stories about this happening in the UK. Most of them have come out of the UK, and almost always the people involved are from Pakistani heritage. You were also taken to Pakistan, and a lot of these scandals, they just went unreported. I think there were thousands of young girls in the UK, in Rotherham, for instance. I think that was the first big scandal I heard of, where they were just abused for years, and law enforcement knew about it, and they turned a blind eye to it, essentially, because they were afraid of being called racist because of the people who were involved. One of the, and I guess we'll get to it later, like, your experiences with calling the Australian authorities in Pakistan as well. But this is a very widespread scandal. How does grooming work? Can you tell us what grooming is and how it leads to abuse?
Should we do that after her story or before her story?
Well, I think let's just let's talk about what this is, in case some people don't know exactly what people mean by grooming. So let's just get the basic, and I think that'll naturally lead into.
Cool, and I wanted to address one of the points that you raised as well. But grooming at a base level is, I think, could be described as practices that are designed to lure, trick, manipulate, prey on people's weaknesses in order to convince them to do something against their will and for an alternate purpose. I mean, you're willing to add to that definition, but grooming practices, include lying to somebody, catfishing, these kinds of lecherous behaviours, and I wanted to segue into what you said about the burgeoning grooming gangs in the UK. And there's a prominent survivor that we've actually been in touch with called Sammy Woodhouse. And you're absolutely right. There's this political PC brigade that doesn't want to label who the offenders are. And that's why people are getting away with it. Police are frightened to be called bigots, xenophobes, and it's actually pretty scary. And that's something that I want to confront head on. I don't want to capitulate to extremists. I don't want the grooming gangs to win. I want to label something. If something is what it is, then it is what it is. We need to label it for what it is. And so I'm not frightened of the PC brigade, and nobody else should be.
Okay. So,
yeah, but grooming as a basic thing is someone who's on false pretenses, luring you, using potentially charm, charisma, finding your weak spots. Groomers are really good at doing that. And
they also strike at a time when you're most vulnerable too. And I think you have talked about that in the past, that you were at a particularly vulnerable point in your life when this happened to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did it start?
It started when I was, you mean with Sajjad, or, so basically I was on a train in 2012, circa 2012, and I met a Pakistani woman. She was a woman of Pakistani origin, and she was crying and quite upset. And I, of being a very empathetic person, approached her and said to her, you okay? She was failing her English test perpetually. So I offered to give her free tutorials. I found out she came from Pakistan. She only had her brother and his wife there. And I became kind of like a part of me. They'd cook these amazing Pakistani meals. And like I said, I came from a pretty terrible background, which was unhappy. And I guess it was attractive to me to feel like I belonged, even though in retrospect it was a totally contrived sense of belonging. It was nevertheless what I craved at the time. Then in around 2013, I was on a Skype call and with the Lahore counterpart of their family. And that's when Noreen is Sajjad's sister. Sajjad is the primary offender. They were both on the line. Sajjad claimed to be a lawyer, and I was studying law at the time, so he took an extra special interest in me. He's like, can I help you out in your studies at all? The grooming really began there, and intermittently over the years we had contact, and the authenticity of anything that he said was backed up by the fact that I had close relations with his family in Sydney. And, you know, he really put on the grooming when I went through a bit of a mental breakdown about a year and a half ago, roughly. That's rough. And I was struggling. It might have been 2 years ago. And I was really struggling, and I was hospitalised, and I absolutely needed the comfort and love of somebody, and don't have a mother or father that I can get that from. So I kind of relied on him emotionally. He appeared to be empathetic, warm. Every time I needed someone to validate me, he was there. Secondary to that, you know, he promised this amazing life. If I ever went to Pakistan, that I would be safe, I'd be free. He'd talk about this girl that was white, that was of German descent. He claimed that he always saw not wearing a hijab, just walking freely in the market. If I ever went to Pakistan, I'd basically be an Aussie girl with all my freedoms. I had my friends. I get the best healthcare for any of my medical problems. And then he went as far as, you know, and when we've actually got copies of all these counterfeiting documents of a property that he purchased, and he sent photos of it. He even put his thumbprint on this, and he adduced a Sonnery Bank receipt of a property that he had purchased of the deposit. So these are this is a very, very, I guess, great lengths to go to manipulate somebody. Pretty diabolical mind.
Was his family in on it?
I couldn't tell you, but I'd say my sense is yes, because I would talk to Faiza, who was his first cousin, who was living in Sydney, about, you know, all these things all the time, and she would reinforce them. So I don't have enough evidence to say otherwise, to say affirmatively that yes, they were involved. But I certainly ran all his grand promises by Faiza, and she didn't question that. And given that they're so close, they're like this, they're best friends, I find it quite an indictment that she never said anything. I'm going to say that.
And what happened next?
So, you know, he was, you know, and it should be a red flag that he was quite immediately enamoured by me. I was a little bit more hesitant, like, you know, I'm a Westerner. I wouldn't ever get an arranged marriage. And I said, but I became okay over time with the idea of going to meet him to get to know whether we were compatible. And also his younger brother Farouk was getting married in April of last year. So they issued a sponsorship letter. And so the dual purpose of me going there was to go to Farouk's wedding and to also go and get to see whether this romance could take off. Because if you'd asked me before I went whether I thought he was a good person, I would have said, he's like a saint descended from the heavens. He's here to help me. He would never harm me. No way. I was completely lured and completely taken by the lies. And then so he purchased a ticket on Thai Airways for me because I didn't have a lot of money. So he bought the ticket. It was an economy class ticket with Thai Airways. I arrived in Lahore on the 23rd of April last year. And initially, I guess, we were supposed to stay initially in one house that was just supposed to have 2 to 3 people because I said, my OCD doesn't work with your joint family system. I just can't do it. And he assured me many times, I don't live in a joint family.
Your what doesn't work?
My OCD and my mental health won't cope with the joint family system.
Right.
I absolutely cannot do that. I made that very paramountly clear. Mm-hmm. I couldn't have been less unequivocal about that and unambiguous about it. And he said, no, don't worry. For the first period of you staying here, you'll be with just 2 to 3 people in a house in Kent, Lahore, and then we'll move to the Spanish villa, which I've purchased. I promise you won't be with a bunch of people. I know that would be overwhelming for you, which would be overwhelming for many Western girls. So I went on, and I also want to point out that I only went on a 30-day visa. And for anyone who doubts that and queries that, which they have, can easily adduce the evidence to show that it was only a 30-day visa. Anyway.
Why would anyone question that?
Some people have said people automatically get a 3-month visa. I mean, people have accused me of lying and things like that, and there's so much evidence. I'm not afraid of going forward with my story. Truth always prevails.
Okay, so your story is probably pissing off a lot of people. That's why people try to poke hole in as much as they can. Okay, right. Yeah, okay. Continue, sorry.
They will not tear me down. They will not tear me down.
Good.
So I arrived in Pakistan, and I was initially quite accosted by the fact that this house was actually had about circa 20 people, and actually at the time it might have had even a little bit more because of the wedding. And initially I was told they're just here for the wedding, they'll be gone, there'll only be 3 of us in the next couple of days or whatever. So I was like, okay, I can handle this. I can handle it. I can stick it out for a couple of days. And then I decided, after they didn't go away, I decided to confront him. I said, why aren't they going away? The story changed to, they just moved in for your mental health. And I thought, from a point of view of transparency and honesty in any relationship, why didn't you ever, didn't you ever think about telling me that? I then started going, because I'm a sort of an avid investigator, and I was investigating and asking people in the family, so how long have you lived here? And the common thread was either to back Sajjad up or to say, oh no, we've lived here our whole life. Some of the kids obviously hadn't been trained to lie and to stick to the story, that they'd always been there. And I confronted him with this, and he said, it's just their poor English. He was gaslighting me. He said, Farouk al-Beri even speaks Urdu, he mainly speaks Punjabi. Forget his English. Like, it's a pretty simple question, how long have you lived here? And I get a very firm answer of always. I was like, I don't know how much English one needs to have for that to be the case.
If the English was poor, you would get an answer that made no sense relative to the question.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Correct. The answer, it coalesced with the question.
Right.
So my friend Annie massively cross-examined him over Facebook, and he basically admitted at the end that it was a lie. I was devastated because I don't think people realise, and people are like, well, why didn't you just leave straight away? All of this was happening, and all of the lies were coming at me like one after the other. I had developed quite a bit of affection for this person and his entire family. I'd been groomed by and adored by the entire family, and there were still moments in that early period where we were having happy times. We'd play water fights, and I was still trying to make it work. And people will point out a happy photo and go, "You must be lying." Again, nobody knows what's happening really behind closed doors. So I'd like to rebuke that. No. You can't use little happy photos to claim that I'm lying. Anyway, I forgot where I was at.
What happens next? So you discovered there are some lies, and what happens next?
So then I said to him, well, if this is the case, I'd like to go to the Spanish property. Can we go there? He goes, I put tenants in it. I'm really sorry. And it's on the other side of Lahore. You wouldn't want to go all that way. I was like, furious. I said, you put tenants in it? When did we have this dialogue?
Right.
I was like, you are going to go and issue an eviction notice right now. I was that mean girl. I was really angry, as you would understandably be.
Right.
And he delays and delays and delays and says, yes, of course, I'll issue an eviction notice. Don't worry, we'll move there. And I said, I can't live in this filth and this squalor. 20 people living in a 5-bedroom house, not great. All the noise, everything, and it was not the best of houses. And it was in a pretty dilapidated area. So I was angry. Then a couple of days later, and I've got the screenshots of it, he admits on record that the Spanish house is also a lie.
Yeah.
And he says, but I did it for your mental health as a distraction. And I said to him, a lie is a lie. And I just started calling him Pinocchio. I said, your nose just keeps growing.
Mm.
Do you ever tell the truth? Like, do you actually have a problem with pathological lying? And I suggested that we get counselling because I wanted to work with him initially. to remedy this. I have a very, and maybe that's part of my fault, is I believe, and it's something that I'm learning less to believe in, I believe that most people have redeeming qualities, that people can change, but some people just can't. Some people are just bad to the bone, which I now think about him. So initially...
there was I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention that when you were talking about how everybody says you were lying about everything that he said, you actually provided them with pictures that he had sent you of the Spanish villa, and then you took pictures of the house that you actually ended up living in. So all of this, so it's okay if we put a link to that article in the description for people who are doubters.
Correct. And also I want to let you know that we're developing a legal case, and there's lots of recordings of his. So, in terms of protecting, I want to tell you enough that there is evidence, and it's with the lawyers. But I need to think from a legal strategic point of view that I want to let the lawyers do their work.
Right.
But there's recordings, and people who have heard the recordings that have been made palpably ill by them, and there is no doubt in their mind when they hear those recordings that I am telling the truth.
Right.
And as I said, I'm not scared of people even telling me. It's so absurd because I know that the truth stands with me.
Right. But let's go finish the story before we even talk about the reason behind so many accusations, because I suspect I know why there is a story, what's their motivation. But let's finish the story first before we go there. Do you want to continue what happens after? Yeah, okay.
Then he admits that the Spanish villa is a lie. Mm-hmm. So everything happened in rather quick succession. I then, my visa had lapsed, my passport and my flight was cancelled, my passport was taken away, my wallet was taken away.
Wait, your passport was taken away? How?
Yeah. Well, they just said that they needed it for visa purposes and never gave it back.
Oh, fucking hell. That's when you go to being a slave. Okay.
That's when things started. As soon as the 30-day visa ended, and they were always claiming, there were the grand stories around going to fix it. In fact, there was a time that he claimed to be he went away for 2 days and claimed to be going to Islamabad on my behalf to fix the visa. And there is no evidence with the Interior Ministry that he has ever done anything to remedy that visa. And he always told me, this was a leverage thing, he says, don't contact the Interior Ministry, don't contact your embassy, they'll trace you, they'll find you. We're going to fix your visa, Lara, but until you do, you need to be under our control, otherwise you will be arrested. And so I was allowed out on very limited occasions. And when I would go out, I'd see people and they'd also said it's the rule that you have to go out with your male guardian. So the whole thing about the white girl, the German girl that was in the market, I brought that up and I said, but you said there was a German girl in the market. And he said, oh, don't bring up some German girl that I talked about. This is the rule now. You're in Pakistan now, Lara. And I'd go out with them occasionally because I beg. And I'd see women unaccompanied and I'd say, she doesn't have a male guardian with her. I'd either be told that I'm not seeing what I'm seeing or that they are beggars and that no person or no woman of stature would ever go without her male guardians.
That's not a thing in Pakistan, just to be clear. That's a thing in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. It's not in Pakistan. Yeah. That's not a thing.
Correct. Yeah. I was told that I would be arrested. That it was the law.
What?
That it was. And once I contacted people like the Punjab Commission on the Status of Women, I actually ascertained that it's actually not. So that is correct. It might be the law in Saudi Arabia, but it's not that women can go out alone in Pakistan. And there were long periods of time. There was I think a period of 8 weeks that I never left the house, and I would just look over the balcony and just totally miss my freedom. And I don't think if anybody has been deprived of freedom that much that they can truly understand how captivating freedom seems when you don't have it.
Yes.
And I was so miserable. I had no entertainment or barely any entertainment, trapped in this room for most of the day, just crying, wanting my freedom more than anything else. And then other abusive behaviours came up, which I can talk about. It's obviously hard to talk about, but I can give you some examples.
Please, if it's not too much to ask, please do.
So Jad was very sexually abusive. and so was his brother Nadeem. Sajjad was a lot worse. And there was a lot of physical abuse that went on in that house. I think it's reported in the Daily Mail. I told the Daily Mail about an incident where I came out of the shower and there was still some residual shampoo in my hair, and he became enraged, which was him becoming enraged and belittling me and dressing me down was a daily occurrence. I was always considered an idiot and he was always considered supreme. And he grabbed me and in my mind, I was like, what the hell is going to happen? So I'm like, I've just got a towel on and a towel on my head. He drags me into the washroom. He starts banging my head against the basin and saying how stupid I am. Are you stupid? You can't even look after yourself properly. Can't even wash your own hair. And he starts aggressively washing the soap out of my hair. There was another time when I was at the top of the stairs and I thought that he was going to throw me down. He had his fist hovered over me and he was yelling at me. This was his house. It was his rules that he could kick me out at any point, that he could kick me back to Australia. He could do anything. He was the boss. And he would use chairs to throw them against the wall to intimidate me, slam doors. I'll tell you about one incident with the maid as well. They descended on the maid like a pack of wolves once. I've rarely seen a human being more abused than what they did to the maid one day. I realised I was among savages, not human beings. I'd regressed to being with Neanderthals. And I actually got the audio recording of the day that they attacked the maid. And I was terrified. I was recording and hiding as I was recording all of this going on. It was horrifying and I wanted to just intervene and save her. These people are not like you and I. They're not educated. They're not intelligent. They are remnants of a different era and a total regression of civilization. And I was made to starve at times, sometimes for 14 hours. I'd just be begging for food. Every little thing I would beg for. Food, entertainment, even an English movie. Can you throw me a bone? I watched The Devil Wears Prada like 10 times. And that's a really petty thing to think about, but entertainment is a basic human need. Because I wasn't allowed any friends. There were a couple of times I tried to run away, which I can talk about, unsuccessfully. I was so miserable at my entrapment, and it was becoming very obvious to me that I had come all the way to Pakistan to be somebody's prisoner, someone's sex slave, not an equal human being, not at any level and of equal stature to him. He was boss.
Did he force himself on you?
Yes. Yeah. Many times.
So he raped you?
Yes.
And you're saying both him and his brother were both of them sexually abusive?
Yeah. His brother didn't succeed in raping me, but he tried many times.
Did he know about it? Did he try to stop his brother?
He knew about it. And he said to me, and I've got the screenshots and the records of it, you are to blame. You are showing your weakness and constant sadness in this house.
Oh, what the fuck?
Of course, Nadine's going to take advantage of it. I then approached Noreen because it was getting so bad. I said, this is what's happening. And she said the same thing. She said, well, you only have yourself to blame.
Who's this in the second person?
This is his sister Noreen. I also told her I was being sexually abused, and she said, you're to blame. And because Nadeem was a married man as well, she said, it's probably you've taken a married man away from his wife.
Oh, for fucking hell.
To blame as well for that. And I was just horrified. I was told in many family meetings that Sajjad and Nadeem are princes. They cannot be challenged on anything. We'd have family meetings and how I'd be the problem, and they'd all sit around and say what a huge problem I was. Sajjad is, I suppose he's doing all these terrible things. You don't have a right to question him. He is a prince, Lara. Remember, in this culture, he is a prince. Men in this culture are princes. You do not have a right to question him. And I just thought, is this actually happening? I honestly thought, is this actually happening? Are these people actually saying this? Is this for real? I couldn't comprehend the primitiveness of these notions and ideas that were being promulgated. I was like, no, Sajjad has to be held to account. He doesn't have he's not veiled in some sort of protective shroud where he can just do whatever he wants and walk around with impunity. No, he's a terrible human being. He's not a prince. Let's get something quite clear on this recording. Sajjad Khan is not a prince. He's an evil, lecherous predator.
Well, he's a criminal.
He's a criminal, and I am going to prosecute him, and I am going to, which comes at great risk to myself, but because I have been told that I have to fly back to Pakistan, but it's something that I'm looking into.
Can you please
in talks.
Don't. It's not safe, is it?
Well, that is a very big concern that people have raised. It's not possible that we've been told by numerous legal experts to testify via video link. I will need to go to Pakistan, and there's a number of risks. I'm a very outspoken person. Who knows? From that point of view, that could be wrong. I'm not necessarily going to be everybody's friend in Pakistan. In addition to that, there's a very personal threat that Sajjad Khan and his family have against me. So we've asked the Pakistani authorities and the Australian authorities to render a relevant security detail. Whether they'll step up to the plate remains unseen, but given the profound failings of government here in my case, I would hope that they'd be falling over themselves to render the right detail and to ensure my safety so that I can get jobs.
We'll get to the failings and what we can do to pressure the Australian government, but you tried to run away a couple of times, and did you ever call? Did you ever consider calling the police?
Yeah, so let me tell you about, so we haven't talked about how, so let me just set the scene that, as I told you, it was a very, very abusive environment, terrible, day in and day out. I began to fear my life, and I just wanted to get away. So I remember there was one occasion where one day I didn't even know, I didn't have a plan specifically, but I remember the door was open, I was admonished for even approaching the door, but I saw an opportunity, the door was open, and I ran. And I remember specifically, I ran and I was weeping and weeping and weeping, and I ran into a woman in full burqa, and she spoke in perfect English to me. She was wearing the niqab and everything. She said, "Honey, why are you crying? Why are you weeping?" I looked back. I could see Sajjad was running after me. I was like, do I take my opportunity now? What do I do? I was just like thinking, she said, "Honey, if you need help, I'm here. Why are you weeping? You're sad." And I was just like frozen, because by the time I actually processed what was going on, he'd caught up and said, "She's just crazy, just having a bad day. I'm going to take her back home."
Oh, my God.
There were a couple of other times I just ran out onto the street aimlessly as well when I caught an opportunity. Another occasion, which isn't really a running away occasion, but an occasion where I was totally humiliated for taking any liberty or any attempt for any sense of freedom. It was on Eid, which is a big occasion, and neighbours often waved to me, and I craved any attention at all, because I felt so lonely. And they asked me to come over. I believe it was Eid. I could be wrong. Anyways, it was some sort of occasion. And I thought, you know what, bugger it. I'm not someone's prisoner. And people were coming in and out that day, so the door wasn't as monitored as it usually was. And he was a bit distracted. And I went down and I was pretty brazen. And I just said, "Well, I'm going to have chai with the neighbours. See yous. I'll be back in an hour." I go over to the neighbour's house. I'm actually having quite a good time, and they're showing me their hospitality. I notice already that my phone's getting blown up with 1,000 calls. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm wondering what's going to happen. And the whole Khan family come out onto the street. I'm called out to the balcony of the neighbours. They start yelling at me, "What do you think you're doing?" I already know I'm in massive trouble. I said, I'm just at the neighbours, and they're about to serve up some food for me. I felt so embarrassed. I was relying on these people's hospitality, and I was like, I have to come back. It was like, Daddy's asking me to come back. Like, it's so infantilizing. It was a huge dressing down. I was horrified and mortified, and I was basically told, "You've got to come back. They all surrounded me. When I got home, I was verbally assaulted and attacked. Don't you ever do that again. I was so upset all night, and I said, you have humiliated me in front of the neighbours. And his way of making peace with me was to say that I could go the following day accompanied with 11-year-old Maheen. How infantilizing. So I have permission.
As long as it's a boy, as long as you're with a man, even if it's an 11-year-old boy.
But actually, this was a girl.
It was a girl. Maheen would be a girl.
11-year-old
Maheen, yeah, okay.
And I was like, thank you for having the permission to make it up to the neighbours that I can go and with Maheen. I mean, that was it seemed like a huge privilege that I even had that one courtesy, and I had to be so grateful.
How did the neighbors react to this? Like,
and did you tell them?
Was there any follow-up?
They were like a little bit taken aback. They were just like, your family wants you back. And I was just like, oh my gosh, they created a huge scene. It was so embarrassing.
So why didn't you tell them? Why didn't you tell them that, hey, I'm a hostage here? Can you call the cops or somebody for me? Why didn't you tell the neighbors?
Good question. It's a good question. I'm not sure. Maybe I could have taken that opportunity. I didn't have enough rapport with them to know whether they would be safe people to go to. So I was dealing with a visa that was well and truly overstayed. And so I began to reach out to the Australian authorities. I reached out to the Punjab Commission on the Status of Women, was totally failed by them. So when I reached out, they said to me, I said to them, I'm a prisoner. I can't even approach the door without being admonished. I've got an overstayed visa. I'm being assaulted. Can you help me? And they said to me, what is a ludicrous even suggestion for me to, I said, I don't have any access to money. I might have 300 rupees at most. They said, just catch an Uber. I would have no idea how to even order an Uber in Pakistan. Come to us and we will consider helping you. I was like, in what circumstances would I ever be able to even get out of the house to go to you to get help? And when I said that, I was just like, well, just call 15. And that was also a very scary prospect because I had an overstayed visa.
15 is that's the police number? That's like 911.
15 is emergency number, correct.
Right.
It's like 999, 911.
I have to, when you said that when we were talking about why you didn't tell the neighbors, if I was having grown up in Pakistan as well, I wouldn't have told the neighbors either. And then the reason for that is that, as you're saying, you're calling these organizations, you're calling the Australian authority, like nobody's responding. This idea that I'm already in such a horrendous situation, how do I know that I can trust the neighbors? I mean, that's kind of, there are very few people who would actually do that to try and get out. So I think that anybody who criticizes you for instance, not telling the neighbors about it and seeing that, I think it's probably a protective mechanism just to make sure things don't get worse.
People can say what they would have done if walking in my shoes, and a lot of people have. Like, why didn't you think of this? Why didn't you think of that? But actually, I think I was quite resourceful considering the level of fear, the level, and I have mental health problems, as I said. So every decision I made, I thought, is that going to exacerbate my situation, or is it going to make it better?
Right.
Not knowing, not having any support from either the Pakistani authorities. I also called a prominent charity in Pakistan, and initially I'm not going to name it. I was initially quite buoyed because the CEO talked to me and he said, yeah, we'll help you get out, we'll everything. And then every time I tried to call him, he said, there's more important cases. I'm dealing with cases in Dubai. The case just isn't that important. And I was devastated. And he'd just ignore my calls, or he'd be like, oh, Lara, sorry, I'll call you back in an hour, and he never would. And the Australian authorities, when I called them a number of times before I left, and then there was one day that I laid everything out on the line, because the initial first calls I made to them, I was a little bit circumspect because I was like, can you trace me? What is their authority? Do they have the authority? Because he'd instilled great fear in me, and I was like, they didn't seem trained in red flag situations. I said, am I safe to talk to you? I'm in a dangerous situation. I'm safe to talk to you. And they were like, really very poorly trained and had no empathy. They were treating me like a prank caller, like a nuisance.
The
And it was
Australian
clear
consulate in Pakistan. That's how they were treating you.
the Australian High Commission,
Okay.
in Islamabad. And I also called the emergency consulate many times in Canberra. And then there was one time that I just said, my name is Lara Hall. This is my situation. I'm being assaulted. This is what's happening. My visa is overstayed. Can you please help me? And they said it's beyond the scope of their charter to help me. And they wrote me an email, which I've got, and they didn't even annex their charter. They said, please find a list of local lawyers and the charter. They annexed neither. It's so negligent. It's embarrassing. It's an embarrassment. And I had to actually chase them. I said, you might want to attach the lawyers that I know you're not going to pay for, and the charter, which they didn't explain to me. It was a lengthy document, which I now understand. The timing. Imagine if it was in such an overwhelming situation as it is, but imagine if I'd been mentally disabled. It's an overwhelming document. They even understand it. They were just like, here it is, you're on your own. We can't help you. And they confirmed even before and after I left the premises that they will not render emotional, legal or financial support. So I ask you, what is the role of the consulate and diplomatic services in Pakistan if it is not to help Australian citizens in peril?
That is something that is so... if there's a Canadian citizen that is out in Pakistan and they're in even a tenth of the trouble that you said you're talking about over here and what you went through, they have to help you. I mean, I have had.
If you were a U.S. citizen, they would send the army, wouldn't they?
I've actually spoken to people who were in Pakistan who were Canadian citizens and they needed to get out because they were in abusive situations. And I got on the phone with people in Ottawa who talked about actually paying for their tickets, getting people in there covertly. It's absolutely this part of your story is just
embarrassment to Australia. It's an embarrassment to Australia.
Horrendous. It's just
it gets worse.
Ridiculous.
It gets worse.
How does it get worse?
So, I'll just explain to you. So before I left, I reached out to them and they gave me the 15 number and they said, no, you need to rely on local authorities. It's beyond our sovereignty. You're an
Australian citizen. How is that beyond their sovereignty? They're supposed to protect their citizens.
It would have been comforting to know that, and I told them my visa situation, I'm absolutely terrified, and people know that there's corruption over there in the police force. I was absolutely terrified about what would happen to me if I was like going to the police. I'm like almost like a criminal myself, thinking, I'm an alien. I'm illegally in Pakistan. It would have been comforting to know that at least my government had my back. And as I realised the Australian government was not on my side, I had to engage in a very dangerous strategy. So if this is the precedent that the Australian government wants to set, it's very scary. The message that the Australian government has sent me is that they are decorated government officials who just process lost and stolen passport applications and do no other thing, and that an Australian in peril has to rely, as I did, on networking covertly online, which is everybody knows is dangerous. It's how I got myself in the situation in the first place, with perfect strangers, falling on the mercy of perfect strangers, which is what I did, which is how I reached out to Dr. Kessler Rafiq. So Sajjad always told me he's more powerful than me. So it came to a point where I had to go, okay, and I'm an incredibly resourceful person, and I think he underestimated me completely. And that's why I'm here today. There is no doubt in my mind that there is a high probability that I wouldn't be here if I didn't use my mind. He underestimated me, and the one mistake he made was leaving me with my phone to be able to avidly network. Every day I made it my mission to go on LinkedIn and Facebook and find out who are the prominent people in Lahore and in Pakistan that may be able to help me with my safe exit. If my own government won't help me and the Pakistani authorities won't help me, and the idea of going to the police by myself without any support seems absolutely scary, well, I'm going to reach out to the influential people. I can't just reach out to ordinary people because they will not have the connections. So Dr. Kessler Rafiq, after doing his due diligence, ascertained that I was a person in need. And he decided, he was in Birmingham at the time. He said, just be patient and wait till the 30th of August and I will help get the head of the army to help you, and I will contact all the relevant authorities to get you out safely. And managing the visa issue. I had to tell him that I had a visa issue. And that scared me. I was like, what's going to happen? I had to send him all the screenshots of my passport and my overstayed visa. But 4 days prior to him offering that help, I used to wait by the phone for his messages because it was the only hope that I had in the darkness. I was just like, this person's going to help me. And I am very, very, very thankful to him. And I attribute, my safe exit is attributable to a lot of people, but to him. And so anyway, 4 days prior to our planned escape, where we were going to do a big raid of the house and he was going to get me out, I felt my life was at threat. I was on the bed, and as usual, I was, trying to find more connections. And I noticed, because I used to encrypt all my apps and every day and change the password every day. And I think I was re-encrypting my apps. And I noticed that my device had been paired with a Samsung device. I think it was an S7. And I thought, Sajad's the only person in the house that has that. How has this happened? I started rapidly Googling, does that mean he knows my escape plans and is just laughing as I try desperately to get out of here? Because remember, I'm playing two roles here. I'm playing no, I want to stay here, I'm happy, at times to try to placate him, and the secretly surreptitiously planning my escape, because I knew there was no way that he would ever let me go. So I became quite scared, and without any other option, I decided to approach him and I said, I'm just a bit worried. Have you Bluetooth? Who's got a Samsung, And I said, well, someone has Bluetooth their phone with me. And he very quickly showed me my phone, and I saw that his phone was Bluetooth with mine. To this day, I don't know what the impact of having a phone Bluetooth with you is and whether it would have made him privy to my conversations. But the fear was there. And I saw he had Bluetoothed number of graphic images of me and other girls. He had a lot of graphic images on his phone. And I was like, how did he take them? How did he have them? I was like, he's a massive creep. And I mean, I haven't even told you half the creepy things that he did. Trying to rape me when I was vomiting and ill, forcing me to air my vagina out, very dehumanizing behaviors, masturbating, just anywhere and everywhere, terrible, terrible, condemnable behavior. And I was so creeped out by these images, and I said, delete them. And he said, no, I'm going to delete you. He became enraged. I took that to constitute a death threat, and I could no longer bear being in this house one day more. And a fight broke out. I just remember my heart was palpitating, and I raced up the marble staircase, and I double bolted my door. I double bolted because he had a key to the lower lock, but I pushed the thing up. And I was manning two doors, and I reached out in a flurry to Dr. Kesser Rafiq. And I was just like, I need to get out of here. And he took a while to respond, but once he responded, he said, you're going to have to call 15. And he said, I'll help manage it. I'll help manage the visa issue. He said, you don't have any other option at this point. And so it had reached a dramatic denouement of you have to make a choice. There's great uncertainty here. You don't know what's going to happen when you get to the police. But I cannot be here one more day, and I don't feel safe. So I called 15, and I said, does anyone speak English? And for the next, I WhatsApped them my location, which terrified me. For the next hour, I waited as they would call me intermittently to try to reassure me, to keep me calm. My levels of anxiety were through the roof. And I take their calls because the Khan family were oscillating between trying to bang the door down and trying to lull me into a false sense of security that it was safe to come out by sending me messages that was like, I've just made you chai, it's safe to come out. So I'm totally freaked out at this point, and I took their calls.
Who was telling you that they made you chai?
Sajad was messaging me saying, come out.
Okay, so you're on the phone with Sajad and the police at the same time. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, good.
And I was so freaked out. I was like, what is actually going to happen when they actually get here? And I was trying to ascertain, what would happen if, someone came or whatever. How would he react? Like, I was totally freaked out at how he was even going to react when the police got here. And because of the very, very winding streets in Kent, Lahore, it took the police an hour to find me because I WhatsApped them my location. And when they finally came, they said, you're going to have to come out of your room and go to the balcony and tell us that you're at the right place. I was so scared. I had to check the coast. I was like, unbolted the door, checked the coast was clear, and ran out and gave them the heads up. And then they knocked on the door. So Jihad came up, and I initially played dumb because I was like, he's like, did you call the police? And I was like, no, I don't. Okay. I was just like, the police? What do you mean? Because I'm thinking, I don't want to get myself killed here. Like, and I think I said, because I didn't know how much of my plans, and to this day I will never tell you that I will never know how much of my plans he was aware of and how much he wasn't aware of. But I can tell you that there was an overwhelming sense of surprise. He was taken aback that some girl under his complete authority would have the audacity, the temerity, the tenacity to actually defy him. And I said, maybe my lawyer called him. And when I said that, he said, your lawyer? He was like, and you got to imagine,
that's such a smart answer, by the way, because that would not only that that will make him. Did you just think of that on the spot? That's a very smart answer.
Well, yeah, I wanted. At that time, I felt a little bit emboldened because Dr. Kessa Rafika told me it's going to be okay.
Yeah, but that's also puts him in a position that, okay, if he hurts you, there are a whole bunch of people. Like you have a lawyer, so there's somebody. That's such a bold bluff, and it was perfect. It's perfect. Okay, good.
Yeah, and I was like, I said to him, look, I may know a few people in high places now.
Right.
And he goes, you do? And he was freaking out massively. And because I looked like shit as well. Crap. I mean, you can, if you want to, if you don't believe in that. Because I don't know that I mentioned to you, I was only rented clean clothes every 4 days. I looked like a total victim of months of horror, which I was. And this was the only time I used to beg for clean clothes. This was the one time he wanted me to look actually human. So he was running around trying to find me clean clothes, trying to actually dress himself nicely as well.
For the police?
Yes, for the police, so that I didn't look completely dilapidated, in 4-day-old clothes, my hair completely unkempt, completely depressed, individual that had just lost hope with the world. He's like, Lara, why don't you get changed? Here, I've got a dress for you. And I said, I just want to get out of here. And he dressed himself up nicely. He was trying to say she's just crazy. There were about 20 or 30 police officers with big guns. They brought in a neighbour. I looked out. I just had a brief look at it, and I was like, oh, my gosh, the neighbourhood is swarming with people, onlookers that had taken to the streets in curiosity. This was quite a scene, and it was overwhelming. And because there was no female police officer on, they brought in a female neighbour who spoke English to sit with me as I was.
So just to be clear, why did they have to have a female person there?
I think they wanted, because they knew that Dr. Kessa Rafik was there and that they were being monitored. And I have to applaud them. They did nothing wrong to me.
Right. But is it an Islamic thing that they wanted a female police officer that they didn't have? They had to bring a neighbor? Was that something?
I think I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because of the way they've behaved with me recently. To say that they wanted just to make me feel safe.
Right, okay.
Because it's very intimidating to have that many male police officers with large guns coming in.
There's also another thing that just generally in Pakistan, there's this idea that if there's a woman there, then get a woman to, like, if you're at the airport, get a woman to frisk if it's a woman. If you're at the hospital and a woman's coming in for checkup, try to get a female doctor. A lot of people even they request female doctors. So there is it's kind of a courtesy move there. So again, giving them the benefit of the doubt.
I'm a bit happy with how the police responded to you. I'm disappointed with Australia, a little bit happy with Pakistani police.
And they've got more to tell you about the Australian authorities.
But what happened? Let's finish the story. Look, what happened after? Once the police came?
The police were pretty amazing, and they've backed up everything that I've said that happened that night. And I hope they continue to. They've, offered their support for this case. They brought that woman in, and I kept whispering into her ear, these people are cruel. You have to get me out of here. And she was just really sweet. She was like, "It's okay, darling. It's okay, darling." And they said to me, "You've got a choice. Do you want to come or do you want to go?" And I said, "I'm coming with you." And as soon as we got into the police vehicle, because it was an open paddy wagon, I mean, there was the hundreds might be an exaggeration, but there were so many people filling the streets and so many police vehicles of all varieties. It was very overwhelming for me. It was very late in the night by the time they actually came. And the Khans all jumped on their bikes and were in hot pursuit because they wanted to manage the situation. They were trying to tell the police I was a mentally unwell girl who was delusional.
Wait, and the family was following the police?
Correct. I looked and I was mortified. They were, at least 4 to 5 of them were on their bikes in hot pursuit. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to try to manage everything at the police station, which they did try to do. But because, and when I got to the police, I want to thank them. And I don't want to go because I need them for my case. So we understand how I don't necessarily want to condemn things, but they really could have. There were things they could have done better, like ensuring that I was in a separate interview room and the Khans kept coming in. But maybe just edit that out. But they offered me food. They were polite to me. So I have to commend them in that respect. And then Dr. Kessa Rafiq's employers came. I just didn't show. I showed my passport, but they didn't even check the visa page. So that was great. That was a relief to me. Because I had no legal representative at the time, I entered a very basic FIR and was instructed how to do that. But I said I don't waive my legal rights, and the factory police have confirmed that, and that's why we're going to be instituting a more comprehensive FIR. Sajjad has relied on the fact that the initial FIR was basic to say that nothing bad happened, but not recognising that there were reasons for why it was basic, and that we will be instituting a full comprehensive FIR supported by the wealth of evidence that we have. And the factory police have offered full support of that. So that's a really good thing. I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about my legal case, but I will tell you that the factory police have been very, very good so far, and hopefully that continues. And they back up my state of affairs of what happened that night. And so I left and I said I want to be taken into the care of Dr. Kessa Rafiq. And so I went to AFOS, which is the Falcon Complex, which is in Gulberg. And it's a complex for Air Force officers, I believe. And my troubles were not over at that point. I still had this lapsed visa situation. And my sister, kept an open channel of communication with her. So Sajjad immediately cut my phone. It wasn't until I actually got to AFOS and got connected to the Wi-Fi. It's a claim he denies, but Uphone have confirmed that I had data on it. It immediately stopped working. As it was a further way of trying to get to me and disempower me. That immediate decision to cut my phone, and he denied it when Amy questioned him on it. And the Uphone, I contacted them, and it's obvious my phone didn't work.
Amy, who's Amy?
Amy's my twin sister. My twin sister.
Were you so your twin sister? Were you in touch with her during this whole thing? And she was also with the Australian authorities as well. And so she maintained. I blocked him off everything. And but Amy decided as a strategy to kind of play him, I guess, for want of to game him. She wanted to know what was going on in his mind. Sajjad is a person that loves to tout grand, unbelievable promises, and by that point we no longer believed anything that came from his mouth. But, he loves to hear that you think he's amazing, that you think he's capable of moving mountains. He loves female attention. He's the true definition of a narcissist. Grandiose ideations and delusions of self-grandeur. She kept, stroking his ego. Yeah, you're wonderful. Just because she wanted to see what was tinkering in his mind. And he said to her, that the people that I was with had intentions to human traffic me. And he produced a document that was in Urdu, and he said, this is how delusional this individual is. He says, just translate this document. This is evidence that the people that Lara are with want to harm her and have intentions to human traffic her.
And this also is Dr. Kessa Rafiq, right? He's talking about Dr. Kester Rafiq and his.
Which I want to say he did not.
Okay. So Sajjad was trying to accuse people that you are now with, the people that were actually helping you to get away. He was accusing them of actually trying to use you for human trafficking. Okay.
Yes, to scam me. So there was a couple of nights that I was so scared. I was calling the Australian High Commission. I was calling, and so was Amy. I've got a very long email. And I've shown where I've detailed everything. I said, this is what Sajjad's done. I've annexed the Urdu translation of the Urdu document. I said, can you translate this document? He says it's evidence that I'm with people that want to traffic me. Is this a fear tactic that he's trying to get me to go back to him? He said that he's got investigators trying to track me. Can you help me? I'm still in danger from this individual. Or am I at the mercy of people who want to human traffic me? Is he correct? Because he claims that this document has unequivocal proof that they want to harm me and want to human traffic me. They offered no translation of the document. Eventually, I had the document translated, and it appeared line by line by a local friend. It appeared simply to be my initial first information report. This individual is completely insane. There's nothing to do with any of the people that I was with and their intention to harm.
Yeah. Okay.
Completely ludicrous. He said to Amy, you and I have got to work together to ensure that Lara is safe. I want to keep her safe. If they move her, tell me where she is. He was saying very scary things. And we've also heard from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade
let's be
that
clear.
he was contacting them.
But it's a little bit confusing. Sajjad was telling your sister to tell him if you move. If you keep him,
we're a team. We're a team for Lara.
Right. So he thought that your sister was smart enough to fool him that she is on his side, and him and your sister are trying to. That your sister believed him, and she's going to help him try to save you from these people that are okay. Okay, good.
Correct. So Amy pretended to be on his team. Yeah, we're a team. We're going to keep Lara safe. Don't worry, Sajjad. We'll keep her safe. Because she wanted to know how close he was to tracking me. He obviously knew when I was at AFOS, right? And I've also heard from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, which is quite alarming, that Sajjad was contacting them, and we are subpoenaing under Freedom of Information, and they've said that the calls were disturbing. So here you've got a government who's fully aware that I'm at risk of this individual human trafficking. Now we're talking human trafficking. He's tracking me. I wrote them a very long email. I said to the people that I met with high-level officials, I said, where's your response to that email?
Which government are you talking about?
Australian.
Okay. So
I wrote to them.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was contacting the Australian consulate, and they said that they were disturbed by his calls. And so I'm requesting those calls under Freedom of Information Act 1982. And still, they did not render any support. It's like they were just there to record information, record my concerns that this person is tracking me. And remember, I've still got a visa issue that's unresolved. And so I then decided, you can't stay permanently at a military complex. And I just want to come out and thank everybody at AFOS for what they've done, and thank Dr. Kester Rafiq very warmly for helping me at my hour of need and for showing me many good Muslims and many good Pakistani people. And I want to say that I then moved to and which is very dangerous. Now, again, another dangerous strategy. I then moved in with another person that I network with online, Rafe. And it was then that we started to mobilise to work out the massive overstay issue. I realised that I was likely to either face imprisonment or a $400 US overstay fine, just based on my research that I was doing and based on talking to the Interior Ministry and going to the Lahore. It had never fallen outside of the Lahore jurisdiction, and I was told I now needed to go to Islamabad to resolve the issue. I was also told my date of being blacklisted, and for people who don't know what the blacklist is, that's basically when you've overstayed so far that you are now a fugitive and you're liable to be jailed. I was told that my date of being blacklisted was the 18th of September. I'm going to tell you that I drove to the Interior Ministry and arrived and was actually lucky to even get in there on the 17th of September, one day shy of that. And I was told by the Lahore people that they would understand my story, they would listen to me, Even when I was in Islamabad, I reached out to the Interior Ministry and I said, I'm at risk of being jailed. And me and my friend Rafe was talking to them in Urdu and I was talking to them in English. And I was crying. I said, will you at least meet with me? Please help me. I'm an Australian citizen in peril. Can I seek safe harbour with you? I'm escaping abuse. The only reason I have a visa issue is because I was a prisoner for so long.
Right.
Will you help me? They said, we're too busy. And no, we won't help you.
Wait, do you have this on record that they said that?
Rafe can attest to it was a call. But I have a lot of other correspondence with the all relevant consular services, so in Pakistan and the counterpart in Canberra on record. But in terms of that conversation, I just have Rafe, who was part of that conversation as well.
The value of Australian citizenship seems very low. If it just seems like it doesn't mean much if you're an Australian citizen. If the government is not moving mountains to protect their citizens like this, like what's the point of being a citizen of a supposedly advanced country if this is what the country is going to do for you?
It's actually an even bigger. Well, okay, I wouldn't say bigger. It's different, but it's such a striking kind of outrage because I mean there are assholes everywhere. There are people like Sajjad was a very, very bad man, but the Australian consulate that represents a government, right? Of a people. I mean, it's not an individual. It's an organization. It's not. It's just incredible to me that.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, you would. Yeah, I mean, there are assholes and creeps and rapists and abusers. You expect that, but you don't expect. I mean, you shouldn't expect that, but there are out there. But from
one of our patrons
the level of disappointment from the people that were supposed to protect you is much more surprising. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was saying one of our patrons who is actually in Australia, or he is Australian at least. He's Australian. I don't know if he's in Australia or not. He says that the Pakistani police turned out to be better than the Australian authorities in this case.
Yeah, and actually he had some questions.
Just astounding.
He had some questions earlier, which we'll bring up at the end.
We'll get to that too.
But also like some a Christian organisation that helped me, which I now am volunteering for, the British Pakistani Christian Association, headed by our president Wilson Chowdhury. I wouldn't be alive today without the good Muslims that I relied on, the British Pakistani Christian Association, and the police in Factory Hall Police, Dr. Kesa Rafe. I owe my life and the people that other people, countless people that I don't necessarily want to name because I don't know whether they want to be named, but I know those people don't mind being named. But I just want to extend a very warm thank you that where my government failed, where the Punjab Commission on the Status of Women failed, where the Islamabad... If my case isn't... I was threatened with imprisonment, I want to let you know as well, and I was issued with a $400 overstay fine, and given only because we begged, and they were so rude to us, and we waited for hours. They were incredibly rude. At the very base level, you would expect an authority figure to treat me with courtesy, but it was made very apparent. The guy even said to me, the officer, he was a high-ranking official, said to me, I've actually got an important caseload to work on. I need to deal with my actual caseload. So apparently I wasn't even part of his caseload. As ludicrous as it sounds, he certainly didn't want to hear about my story of abuse. So I wonder if we can get that out there, that the Pakistani authorities need to have some better protocols around giving waivers and giving understanding in these situations, because if I'm not entitled to a waiver of an overstay fine and some kind of grace, then who is? I wonder. So I had to pay that overstay fine, but and that's fine. I've copped it now. But what about the next person? Are they going to have to face that? I hope not. I sure hope not. So I'm fighting for the next victim. I'm not fighting to get my $400 back. I'm fighting for the next victim.
So, Lara, you mentioned that you keep mentioning good Pakistanis and good Muslims, and that's very amazing to hear from you, because a lot of people would expect somebody that has gone through what you have gone through to hate and be against everyone and everything that is even mildly associated with the experience that you've had. But you keep going out of your way to give thanks to and mention Muslims and Pakistanis that helped you and that you're grateful for. Why is that important for you to mention that?
Okay, well, I'll explain a number of things. Firstly, I do not believe it's appropriate to colour an entire nation by its miscreants, by its bad people. Nor do I think it's okay to paint an entire religion by its bad people. I want to go out and say strongly, and there's a lot of people that don't believe that Pakistan can become moderate and can become a place. And Shahan Taseer always says Pakistan can again become a place for all people, including minorities. I haven't given up on Pakistan. I wouldn't be working for a charity that works for Pakistan if I believed that all of Pakistan is to be condemned and thrown to the lions. I believe in a moderate vision for Pakistan. I don't think we've anywhere near reached that, but I will be advocating for that till my last breath. Furthermore, I believe for many good Muslims, and I believe it's here that I want to create a distinction that I think is quite pertinent between and this goes for any religion, between ideology and people. It's one thing to say, all Muslims are bad, which is completely untrue. We know that for a fact. I owe my life to many good Muslims. And it's one thing to challenge and repudiate certain doctrines of Islam or any faith that are bad. And I think it was Sarah Hyder that said that bad ideas in any faith should be able to be rebuked. And that's why, I'm so against the blasphemy laws, because we should have freedom of speech. So I want to say that, there's some ideas in Islam that I disagree with, but there are many beautiful Pakistani people of different creeds, of Muslims, Christians, that I am so thankful to. I do not hold and bear a deep grudge against Pakistan, but I can tell you that I'll be working for the rest of my days to create improvement and create pathways of improvement.
The thing is that we say that all the time, but I think it's much easier for we say we're against Islam, but we're not against Muslims, right? We say that all the time, but I think it's quite easy for us to say that. It's just I just see it as a lot more, there's a lot more strength coming from somebody like you, because we are told, you could say that you're against Islam, but not against Muslim until you get actually hurt by the people. Then let's see what you have to say then. Are you going to say to this people that has been hurt by Muslims that they shouldn't hate Muslims either? So when it comes from somebody like you, I think that's a lot more, it takes a lot more courage and a lot more strength for somebody like you to say that you're against some ideas, but you don't hate a whole group of people, even though you have actually been hurt by it. So, I'm very...
It means a lot more, too. And so just one question. Throughout all of this, were there any attempts at converting you?
Yes, there were. But I just want to go back. There's a musical called South Pacific which says you have to be taught how to hate. And I don't hate. I don't believe in hate. I think love is much stronger. But yes, there were attempts to subjugate me to his will. There was attempts to get me to do the nikah, which people need to be aware would have made me his legal property, and would have made my attempts to leave much, much more difficult. And people need to understand that in Pakistan, based on the research that I've done, and I'm happy for anyone to clarify it with me, that a man has a unilateral right to divorce, but a woman must plead her case usually. Can you think, and that's costly, can you think of all the poor people throwing themselves at the mercy on a judge trying to get a divorce? It wouldn't be feasible for poor people. And why does a man have in the nikah, which is the marital contract, right, why does a man have a unilateral right to divorce, but a woman has to plead her case?
This is something that actually a lot of people don't know about, and they hear this from a lot of, I guess, Islamic apologists who go and say that, Islam gives women the right to seek a divorce. But that's what it does. It allows the man to just divorce a woman just by saying that I divorce you, whereas a woman actually has to seek, it's called khula, right? She actually has to go out and seek it and get permission to divorce a guy. So it is not equal even by a long stretch.
Can I just quickly disagree with one thing that you said, though? I'm going to say it very quickly because some of the patrons told me that not to repeat the points that I make. I actually don't think there's any problem with hate if you hate the right things, because I do hate Islam, right? And I think if you hate anything, it's because you love something else, and if you love something, you must hate anything that would threaten the things that you love. I hate religion because of my love for humanity. Like, you cannot, I hate cancer. Is there any problem with hating cancer? Like, I don't think this whole, I don't agree that when people say, we should not hate. I just think we should hate the right things. I mean,
I'm going to concede. You've won that point. That's an overwhelming win.
Okay.
You've made a very logical, cogent argument for why certain circumstances do warrant us using the word hate, but I don't think we should broad brush anybody or hate by automatic reason without good reason. I think the difference is you've got to have a good reason for why you hate something.
Well,
don't just hate a person that you've never even met because they're Muslim or because they're Christian or whatever it might be. But I hate what Sajjad did, and I hate his family for that. And I feel entitled to feel that way. I hate a lot of ideas in many faiths, but I don't hate just blindly.
Right.
Maybe that's what I say. Don't blindly hate.
Exactly. And is there anything in Islam that you think, as the ideology, that you think was responsible in any way for what happened to you?
Well, I mean, I'm not an Islamic scholar, but from what I've been able to divine, you guys would understand Islam a lot more than me, but from what I would be able to divine, I would tell you that I don't believe there's gender equality in this religion. We've just talked about the marriage laws. Well, there's other laws like 2 female witnesses equals 1 male witness. Why is that the case? We've also got the inheritance laws where women get 1/4, I believe, of what a man gets. I ask why. Why is she somehow less than? These ideas infiltrate at a very young age, and I'm very much about equality. So those ideas are offensive to me. I couldn't give you a compelling, scholarly, backed up argument, but I could tell you from what I know that there are certain ideas in this particular faith that do allow for subjugation.
Well,
and
you don't need. I can tell you that you right now made more sense than most of Islamic scholars. So you don't need to be an Islamic scholar. That makes a lot more sense than all the Islamic scholarship combined. Okay, so
right. And to answer one of the questions when you said the 2 female witnesses equal 1 male witness, and you said, why is that? Well, the answer is actually right there in the verse that talks about it, and the answer is that so that if one woman forgets, the other can remind her. So just the idea that if you have a man, there's no way he's going to forget, but if a woman, if she makes a mistake, if she forgets, then you need another one so she can remind her.
So we are a very forgetful sex, yeah.
Flimsy, yeah. So that the reason is it's clear as day in the verse. It's right there. So anyway,
that's absurd in the extreme. And I'm all about challenging bad ideas, so I'm totally on the same page as you here. And I actually praise you guys for being so outspoken in an age where being outspoken and having your voice attracts such dangers. It's dangerous. It can be quite dangerous.
We've never been I don't know about Ali, but I've never been in as much danger as you have, Lara. So you're one of my heroes right now.
Yeah, mine too.
And I'm still not out of the way because I have fears when I return to prosecute my case. But I believe that, the authorities will, I have hope, and I'm going to push for it, that the authorities will cooperate to ensure that I am safe, because it would be an absolute travesty if I died. I think, or if into custody for some absurd, spurious claims that his family would launch, which is a possibility. They're totally nefarious and adept pathological liars. So I mean, they can go to the lengths of counterfeiting documents. Who knows what their limits are? So, I was
saying they live. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Because of the delay. There's a delay because of the thing, so I keep on. It's not that I'm trying to interrupt you. It's just I realize you're speaking way too late because of the delay. But go ahead and finish what you're saying.
I do want to take the opportunity. And I know it's a bit of a plug, and I know everything, but it's actually a very worthwhile plug. To thank the British Pakistani Christian Association. I do attribute a lot of my safe exit to them, and now the reforms as well. And when I got home, because as I said, I didn't have a supportive environment. They got me into accommodation and have helped me with counselling and putting me back on my feet. And I commend Wilson Chowdhury and all of our team in Pakistan, in Canada, and people now in Australia that are coming up to support for everything that they have done for me. I don't believe I would be here if it wasn't for them, and that's why I'm volunteering for our organisation. And we're looking at ways to change government protocol. We've launched a petition called Lara's Amendments, and we've also raised a number of really sound reforms that we want governments, the Australian government to embrace, and other governments globally to embrace, which I can talk about a little bit if you like.
Yes, please do.
So,
just to be clear, though, so you, because of the Christian organization in Pakistan helping you, once you got out, which I still don't know how you get out eventually, but once you got out, you decided to join that organization and help them, and they are trying to petition the Australian government for some changes. Is that what you guys are trying to do? And it's called Lara's Amendment. Did I get that all right?
That's correct. So I'm the lead Australian volunteer at the moment, and I'm working in concert with them, and I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without them. So I have the full backing of the British Pakistani Christian Association. So Lara's Amendments basically cover, so we went through together, all of the team, we went through all the key policy documents that influence consular decisions, and we rendered some really sound recommendations, and I will post a link to those recommendations, but some things that we've come up with. So the three main documents that influence consular protocol in Australia are the Consular Strategy, the Services Charter, and the State of Play document. And in those documents, it says that the Australian government is supposed to render a quote, unquote, I think it was actually Julie Bishop that wrote this, a world-class diplomatic service. I can tell you from my experience, it was not a world-class experience. Ooh. So,
wait, they have that already there, that it's supposed to be a world-class experience, and this is the experience you got. This is, okay, thank you. Okay,
so we would actually like them to actually emulate what they're stating in their documents. Also, we've found a lot of gaps in their documents. There's no reference to how to deal with grooming victims. I don't think we found kidnap, or we did find some reference to sexual assault victims. No real strong guidelines on how to deal with these situations. So we've offered some really solid guidelines for how to amend that, which we're in a meeting with very high-level DFAT officials. They absorbed. They were quite impressed that we'd actually picked out all the relevant sections in a very comprehensive memorandum that we adduced to them, that where they failed me and where they can improve. And we've been invited for dialogue and for a second meeting, which is a very rare thing that you get, with extremely high senior officials, including the head of Team B. There's a Team A and Team B, and Team B covers Pakistan, to actually be part of rewriting their consular policy. So there's that. Now, we also want to, and I can send you links to this, we also want to create a call centre, which we have named appropriately Safe Exits International. Now, it's a help centre, not just
international,
a call centre.
Not just pocket. This is international plan.
Yeah, we're going to start with Western-speaking nations and the nations that we have offices in, but we don't see why we can't take this global, where we want to help grooming victims, kidnap victims, victims of international abuse crime around the world, by offering them the kind of support and being a liaison for them where their governments are failing them, or where they may need counselling. Not just counselling, but we want to be able to have the finance to provide emergency bursaries to get out of those situations, and to help them with travel advice as well about the risks of certain countries.
This is separate from the petition again for petitioning.
It's one of the reforms.
Okay.
So this is not. This is
things,
something that we'll be running. This isn't something that we're asking the government for, although we're going to ask for governmental grants. So we would like to create a help centre manned by, and I would be one of the people that's involved in it, but manned by other people, called Safe Exits International, which is a very unambiguous title about helping people get safe exits. And there's a precedent for, Safe Exits International, SEI, or just Safe Exits. And I can put give you a link to that. Another reform that we want to have is victims of domestic crime who don't even get convictions, who may even just not even get a charge. I think that the only thing is you need to make a police report, are entitled to a compensation scheme. And we would like, there's no compensation scheme in place for victims of international crime. And it's something that governments have talked about, but they've never done anything to actually put that in place. So it's another thing we'd like to change. We've also noticed that there's gaps in legislation. There's not a legislation to properly deal with grooming practices. So that's why I'm now studying a Master's of Law, and I'm going to articulate hopefully to a PhD. And I want to be involved in the process, along with the British Pakistani Christian Association, in actually writing legislation and presenting it to the Attorney General's office to actually have solid ways of dealing with these kinds of behaviours.
That's a lot of work you're doing.
Well,
it's amazing. I was thinking of while you were telling your story, I was thinking, that there should be something in these places, like an organization that is completely dedicated to getting these victims out, and everything you're describing is
international.
That's exactly it.
Completely dedicated to people like me, and there's many other people. There's a woman that went missing in Pakistan, Alison. I consider myself to be one of the lucky ones. There's a woman that we're actually still trying to find because we feel like we owe it to her family, called Alison McDonald. She's a Scottish woman. And she went missing in Pakistan under mysterious circumstances. So we are sending a team to try to find her. And it's the kind of thing that we would like to roll out. Obviously we have to start smaller and we're looking for funding, but we'd like to roll it out further. And we don't see why. There's nobody that we feel like we should turn away if they're in need. It's just about getting the word out there.
Would this also help, like, with people that do not have citizenship in, like, Western countries, but just they're ex-Muslim in Saudi Arabia or something like that? Would this be for them as well?
Well, like the Rahaf Kanoon case, right? Like that.
I can't speak for the whole entire organisation, but certainly that's something that Rahaf's case is very compelling. I certainly wouldn't see why I would personally turn away anybody in need. And we don't really as an organisation, we don't really turn away people that are in need. It's about getting the financing for it, though, first, to be realistic and pragmatic, and to ensure that each case is genuine, to do a little bit of background. But yes, I would hope that Safe Exits would eventually become that entity that can help any victim of abuse crime from any nation receive the help that they need.
So these things that that people can support, which will include, once the public version of this podcast is out, we'll put all the links in the description. So some people might want to help you with bringing justice to your against your abuser. Some people might not help you with this. Like with this petition, that if people go on this petition link, would this also help, like, embarrass Australian government for the way that they treated you? Like, would it help with that as well? Because that's what I want. I want them to be embarrassed. I want them to be.
Well, they should be.
Yeah.
They should certainly feel the pressure and the weight of public opinion to get their act together. Whether they personally feel embarrassed is a very subjective thing,
right.
But they should be getting their act together. And I certainly want to place pressure to mobilise to get them to say, well, I want them to answer the question: if you don't support somebody in peril, what do you do? Because I don't know.
So for the people that are not going to check in the descriptions, can you just give me the different names for the people that want to support your case against your abuser, and also the people that want to support your project with the Australian government? Like what do they Google? What do they search?
Okay. So we've got all the petitions on chuffed.org, which I'll send you links for. So we've got a petition for Lara's safety and security, which is for supporting my legal case.
Right.
We've got a petition for Safe Exits International, and we've got just a general petition for Lara's amendments, which is just the petition part of it. It's not asking for any finances. Right. But in terms of putting into place those reforms, there's a petition on chuff.org calling for Safe Exits International, which is really one of the main reforms that we're pushing forward first, because we've already got DFAT on side for absorbing some of the changes to consular policy. So the next thing that we're working on is Safe Exits International.
Isn't there a crowdfunding thing going on as well?
There's two crowdfunding things. There's one for my security, justice and safety. And also for my continued counselling, and that's on chuff.org. And there's if you want to help with that, so that'll help with prosecuting him. Also help with my any other expenses that I incur associated with that, and my counselling ongoing, if that's what you wish to do. You're under no obligation to do that. And secondly, there's a second petition for establishing Safe Exits International, which is a 24/7, which will be a 24/7 help centre for people like me who find themselves in very difficult situations. People like Rahaf.
Right.
We wrote articles about her. I would have loved for Safe Exits International to be up and running, to actually be there at the helm when she needed us. So that she's a perfect candidate for that sort of spot. I absolutely have so much admiration for that girl.
Right.
Are you, Lara? Are you in touch?
I'm not in touch. Personally.
Yeah, no. I was saying, are you in touch with you mentioned some of the other people you talked about. What was it, Alison? Can you repeat her name again? Who's still in Pakistan? Alison Donald?
She's a Scottish citizen who was lost in Pakistan. We're in touch with her family.
And are you in touch with other some of the UK victims of grooming gangs and working together with them?
So we've quite early on in the piece, I was offered to do an interview with Sammy Woodhouse because I was still quite overwhelmed with. She's a very prominent survivor of grooming abuse, of the grooming gangs, and again, we need to label them for what they are, because these men generally are of Pakistani origin.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think, if I can talk about the elephant in the room, it's the ideology coming out of potentially Islam. I mean, I think that it is part of it. You can't deny that it's part of it, right?
Right.
This ideology is teaching people that it's okay to subjugate your women like that.
Especially non-Muslim women, though. Like
Kafirs.
Like you could turn them into sex slaves. Like, it's completely Islamic. And nobody can deny this. This is not just Hadith. This is Quranic. Non-Muslim women can be turned into slaves. This is Islam. This is pure Islam.
And there is an element. I should say that the other, along with the fact that the vast majority of them happen to be Muslim, they also happen to be vast majority. Another really big common denominator is Pakistani. But a lot of these grooming gangs,
but Ali, is that
you don't see a lot of non-Pakistani Muslims involved either.
But I don't know if you could show that per capita.
There are a lot of Pakistani Muslims from the information that we have.
Yeah.
No.
But again, there's a resistance from local authorities to name that because they don't want to be called racist, and I probably will get called racist myself for saying it, but I'm just going with the facts and the statistics because I label things as they are.
Right.
And I'm not going to capitulate to the PC brigade because I know I'm definitely not xenophobic, racist. I am not a hate person.
No, anybody that makes those accusations.
You owed your life to many. You just said, here's the thing. So I just want to point out to the audience, like people who are thinking this, like you have said, while you are admitting this reality that most of them are from Pakistani Muslim heritage, which cannot be denied, you have also said that you owed your life to many Pakistani Muslims who helped you out of this situation. So that is also reality, and that's one thing that people miss. People think that people are only going to have like one view or the other, but it's not like that. It's not
I just think like I'm tired of responding to people that make racist and xenophobic or bigoted accusation. I mean, like we move way like they are just noise in the background. Yeah, we can't just
We're on another
fuck them.
It's such an immature way to shut down free speech,
right?
Because nobody wants to speak all these buzzwords.
But Ali was pointing something to which I'm actually don't have the data on, which would be very interested in knowing about, because Ali is suggesting it seems like, at least in the UK, I don't know other places, it seems like it's mostly not just Muslims, but it's mostly Pakistani Muslims. But that could be attributed to the fact that most Muslims in the UK are Pakistani. Like, if we have to, I wonder if you could, I mean, the problem is that police doesn't release this data because they know if they release this data, it looks really bad. So I'm actually very happy that an organization like Quilliam actually looked into this and gives us data. But I was wondering if Pakistani Muslims are actually doing this, because we know that Muslims in the UK are doing this a lot more on a per capita basis, right? Per capita, the number of Muslims that do this is so much higher than anybody else. But if we compare Pakistani Muslims with Saudi Muslims in the UK on a per capita, and if we adjust it for population, will the Pakistani people be higher or lower? I don't know, right? But you can't just be like Pakistanis are more.
It's still going to be higher.
It's still going to be higher? You know that for fact?
Yeah, it's going to be higher. Because this is
of the demographics there, but I have heard that there are a lot of Pakistanis involved.
Yeah, but
that's the information I have.
They're almost all of them are Pakistani.
Right, but you have to adjust it per capita. We can't just say there's a lot of Pakistanis, because there's most Muslims in the UK are Pakistani. But if you adjust it per capita, Ali is suggesting even if you adjust it for as a percentage of population, Ali is suggesting it will still be Pakistanis more. And if that is true,
there are certain activities, I think, that there are, like, there's all kinds of Muslims in the world, but there are certain grooming gang scandals are really specific to Pakistani Muslims, and especially Pakistani Muslims, and then there are other things.
So if that's the case, though, Ali, if that's the case, then some people might use it as an evidence. Okay, and I'm going against my own narrative here by saying this. Some people might suggest that this is more a cultural thing than a religion thing. Because why aren't Saudi Muslims or other, like Syrian Muslims or Lebanese Muslims doing this in the UK? Why is it not Pakistan?
That's a good question. That would be a good question that you'd want to investigate.
I think that's quite a good question.
It is a very good question.
Yeah.
So there are certain things, like, for example, Muslims who are in Saudi Arabia and the UAE tend to literally practice slavery on their drivers and their employees. They get foreign drivers and employees and maids, and they essentially they treat them as slaves in completely different ways. So there are. I think that religion has certain aspects cultural behaviors that it endorses and that it reinforces.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, and then when you mix it with in a society like Saudi Arabia, it has a certain result. When you mix it in the British Pakistani society, it has a different result. So it really depends on. There's all these sort of reactions going on depending on what the mix is. So
nothing happens in a vacuum. So when you put the ideology into a certain situation, there's going to be the situational nuances, right, of the individual cultural context. So I don't think you completely ignore culture, but I couldn't tell you the exact nexus between ideology and culture, because that's probably above my pay grade as a volunteer. But
no, but one of the reasons we can't find out is because
speculate that it would be very different when you insert the same ideology into different cultural contexts. You're going to get a different output. I could definitely see how that would be.
You know how this could be eventually resolved is if people started asking these questions and looking into it. What are the common denominators? How much is culture? Where do the culture and religion intersect? Is there really a dichotomy? But the thing is, nobody's going to ask these questions because they just want to deny that this is an issue altogether.
Yeah, we will.
No, we will. Yeah. You're right, but what I'm saying is that the main
and also people like again, a lot of people think I'm against Majid Nawaz because I'm against Islamic reform.
Oh no, Majid Nawaz has been.
Hold on, let me finish my thought. Let me finish my sentence. But I'm saying, like, I always say one of the leading organizations is the one that Majid Nawaz is at. The Qualm Foundation is one of the organizations that is not only going beyond asking these questions, it's also doing a lot of good work answering these questions. Yeah. So, but go on.
I have respect for him, for Majid Nawaz. Is that how I say his name? Yes. And I've looked at the film as well. I couldn't say that I know enough about him, but I'm familiar with some of his work. Yeah. He's a reformist, and I know that Armin isn't a reformist. He doesn't believe that it can be reformed. But I think the good works and the good fruits of his labour should still be acknowledged.
Right.
I'm not sure if I'm a reformist or not. I'm undecided. All I know is that there are good Muslims, but there's also, and there are good Christians, good Hindus, bad Christians. This isn't just like, there's good and bad in all. Yeah. And I'm thankful to the good Muslims. I don't hate Pakistan. I'm dedicating my entire life to fixing Pakistan. If I hated Pakistani people, if I'd given up on Pakistan, why would I be working for an organisation?
I'm going to put my regressive leftist hat on and tell you, okay. who
not
are
the leftist hat.
No, not the leftist, the regressive leftist, because I don't want to accuse all people on the left to be like this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you that you're going to fix Pakistan. You're this white woman. Who are you to try to fix us? You think like we're barbarians.
The history of colonization?
Like you think like we're this barbarians, that you with your superior culture and you coming and saving us backwards people. Is that what you think? Like who are you to come and fix us? Like you go fix your own country.
I'm taking on Rudyard Kipling's White Man's Burden, poem. I don't know whether you've heard of it.
Yes.
Right.
The white woman's burden in this case.
Yeah, the white woman's burden. I'm coming to reform, primitive culture. That's probably what that might be a criticism leveled at me. I would rebuke that by saying it isn't really about skin color. It isn't about any of that. I'm just one person who had an experience that's quite compelling in Pakistan. I see there's problems in Australia that need fixing as well. It's not about just attack Pakistan. It's that I have a passion with Pakistan. I have, a very deeply personal experience with Pakistan.
Right.
And I feel so moved to ensure that Pakistan can become the Asian tiger that it is capable of becoming. That might sound idealistic. Why can't it become like, a moderate example of everything that, is that it can be good about, that culture. And I have seen in that culture, and I've seen the great elements of Pakistan, and I hope other people can as well. And that's why I'm not giving up on Pakistan. If people see it as me usurping other people's roles or taking up the white woman's burden or being a racist, or they can think that people can label you as it however they want, but they have to look at your heart. And my heart is to help Pakistan, and I don't think Pakistan should be turning away any help or any love.
As a Pakistani, I'm giving you honorary Pakistani status in terms that you accept as a reformer. And I think that in some ways, I think what you've gone through and the sort of nightmare that you went through, I think that makes you more. I think that makes you more qualified to take on issues relating to Pakistan that most people who live in Pakistan and deny that these things ever happen, and that are in complete denial of the problems of their country, because that's why the country it turned into a borderline failed state, is because of people who just completely went. Can I
tell you how? Can I just quickly tell you how I would answer that question, just really quick? I know.
So that was a curly question, I'm going to admit. Yeah. It's a good one, though.
I would say your country is part of my planet, and I care about my planet. That's
correct.
Right.
I would also say one other thing, that I don't think people should be focusing on my skin color. I'm not focusing on their skin color. Right. So why are they focusing on mine?
I mean, it's crazy, it's crazy. Maybe we shouldn't care about skin color. It's a very crazy idea. Just put it out there.
What a crazy idea that we should just, I'm just a human being.
Revolutionary.
Revolutionary, I don't know. But I kind of think above skin color.
Right.
Maybe I'm just
it's like all this time they spent trying to convince white people not to care about skin color, and finally when they got there, they're like, "Oh, but you're white." Like, what are you? It's like, what were you doing? You got me to this point.
And now they're telling me to care about it when I don't care about skin color. I care about helping people.
Yeah,
I'm colorblind, so I don't. And I'll inevitably be accused, as you probably have, of being racist as well. I think one person already has called me racist, and I'm okay with that because I know that.
You're going to get a lot more of that.
I'm going to get a lot more.
Yeah,
it's okay.
You're going to be.
Hate.
You haven't. You will. You haven't even got the badge of being a Nazi yet. Like, not yet, Nazi.
Oh wow! I'm going to be anointed with such a wonderful badge.
Yeah,
Lara,
not yet. Okay, you'll get that.
Wow.
Yeah, I was yesterday, within the space of 2 minutes, I was called anti-Muslim and anti-Semitic by people on opposite sides. So, there you go. But I got one thing is that generally the way that the haters work when they say hater is going to hate is that they tend to take whatever there is about you and they'll turn it against you. For example, supposing you were a brown Pakistani woman who was on this podcast talking about what you went through and you had that experience, they would find something about you. Maybe you came from a family that was well off. Maybe you had educational opportunities other people didn't have. They're going to find some way in which you're privileged to try and use that against you and to try to discredit you. So in your case, it's because you're the white savior or whatever. They're going to use that narrative, and it's all just complete bullshit. And as Armin says, I think we should just completely ignore that and just say, okay, all right. Now, anyway, next point.
Ali, just because we need to get to the Patreon questions, I'm just going to add my 3 questions together. My last 3 questions is: how did you eventually get out? Why are my suspicion is people really want to poke holes in your story because it seems like you're either embarrassing Islam or Pakistan, and I think that's the main motivation, that they want to discredit you. Let me know if that's right. And my last question is like: are there a lot of victim blaming going on with regards to your story? Just my last 3 questions before we get to patrons.
So I finally got out through the help of the British Pakistani Christian Association and other people who helped to get the funds together. I did a GoFundMe, raised a very modest amount, not very much, just enough to cover the basics, got out, came home, and I've been supported largely, with counselling and stuff like that. And living with a lot of Christian people at low rent, just that the British Pakistani Christian Association has put me in touch with, and that's how I've been getting by. So I'm just a volunteer, a mere volunteer, which I'm very happy about. The second thing is victim blaming. Yes, when I went to the media about my story, I was very surprised. Maybe I shouldn't have been surprised. But some people said, "What was she expecting?" We all told you not to go to Pakistan. That I knew. Yeah, that I knew. They said, "We told you not to go to Pakistan." I was called a gold digger. I was called very nasty names. And it was quite hard to deal with. It's always hard to deal with your detractors, people said she's lying. Sajjad has actually continued to groom people. He'll send them a happy photo of me and say that she's lying. So he's always at the house. So I wouldn't be surprised if he'd be on the thread trying to comment here either. So he's grooming people continually. But in terms of victim blaming, let me be very, very clear. It wouldn't matter if I was educated. It wouldn't matter if I was uneducated. It wouldn't matter if I was naive. It wouldn't matter if I had a mental disability, physical disability, any form of incapacity, or if I was the most intelligent, articulate, brilliant person in the entire world. I do not deserve to be harmed. No victim should ever be blamed. Who is to blame in this situation? Sajjad and any of the co-offenders, not me. As for claims about gold digging, sure, the idea of living in a nice Spanish villa and having a comfortable life was attractive. It wasn't really the draw card because I was actually compelled more by the fact that I thought he was empathetic, but I can't lie and say that it wasn't attractive. I think that would be something that would be attractive to many people, the idea of stability. But I know that I'm not the things that I want to put and claim me to be. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's certainly, I'm just a volunteer.
getting by. If I was really a gold digger, I wouldn't be happy to.
I mean, even if that was the main drive, it still doesn't matter. Even if you're saying that's not the main drive, but even if it was, who gives a fuck? Right? I mean, I like to live in a comfortable villa too. Like, if somebody offers me that, I'll take it, right? But like, I don't know.
It was wrong. He's still wrong here.
I know.
Fake stuff. He is still wrong. He should not have shown fake documents, and actually that could get him in a lot of trouble with the Law Society in Pakistan. Counterfeiting documents, which we have, by the way, putting his thumbprint on those documents,
right?
Signing them. That he had purchased this property, sending me fake pictures of this property. That's on him as well. I'm popping that right on him, not on me.
Do you think the people that
to convince somebody of a fake reality is distorted? It's not me again that's got the problem here. It's Sajjad that has the issue.
Do you think that the people that say, "What did you expect?" Those are the actual bigots, aren't they? Like, of course, this is Pakistan. What did you expect? Like, okay, what does that say about
yeah, that's actually quite an illuminating point to make.
Okay.
And then they'll say in the same breath that, I'm a bigot for raising any issues about Pakistan.
No, actually, use like the people that are trying to use the race card and use it on them back. Like, you're blaming me for this. You're the racist. You're saying I should have expected this from a Pakistani. You're like, accuse them of racism. See how they take it.
I'll embrace that feedback. Thank you.
Okay. So, Lara, we've got about 10 minutes left. So I'm just going to go through some of the patron questions.
Try to go through all
of
them.
the stuff we covered, but
okay, go through.
We can't, because we don't have enough time, and some of them are repetitive. Okay. So Canuck Saram's got a whole string of questions that I think go together, but he said, what kinds of sub-ethnicities are there in Pakistan? I wonder if there's a specific regional subculture that might be a part of it. Don't some Pakistanis have blood ties to the Pashtuns in Afghanistan, some of whom practice pederasty? And perhaps this heterosexual hebephilia of the Pakistani grooming gangs is somehow related.
We need an expert for your questions.
No, actually,
it's a question. I wouldn't know the answer, so I'm really sorry that I couldn't comment. I couldn't give you an answer about the ethnic subtype.
Oh, here's a better question.
I can attempt one here, though.
But I want to get questions that Lara can answer. Okay, here's a question from Canucks that you probably could answer. It says, could the SEI, their organization, right, eventually evolve to help women flee homes, families, communities where they might be subject to FGM? Oh, but that's...
Yes.
I don't know, though, Lara. That's like it's millions of women all of a sudden. You need to become a...
Well, I have to talk to the team about it, about whether that's something that's within the scope of Safe Exits International, because, it's a team effort. I certainly think FGM is a huge issue that I would certainly like to address. Whether it's for Safe Exits International to address is something that I couldn't answer authoritatively in this call, unfortunately, because I don't know, but I think it's a very good question that you've raised, and something that I will raise with my team if it's something that we can take on. If we can be at the helm of fixing, remedying that absolutely condemnable practice.
But Lara, you mentioned some of the charities. I mean, you might get into a position where you have to turn some people down, even some people that are in need, because you can't help everybody. But then you might feel guilty. I just want to warn you about not feeling guilty, because then you're going to remember that some people turned you down. And then you want to say yes to everybody, but no matter how big you become, you're not going to be able to say yes to everybody. You are going to have to reject some cases in favor of some other cases, but that might really make you feel like torn apart and guilty, because you're going to feel like that the people that you're saying no to are exactly like when you were said no to. You know what I mean?
Right. That's a very good question. Hopefully I would think, we obviously any organization has to have very certain objectives that it wants to achieve. It can't help everybody. Yeah. You can't be all things for all people, and I realize that my inclination is always to say yes when someone wants me to help them. But it's not always feasible. and it may not fit within the objectives of our charity, but maybe a way of dealing with that is we could have partner organisations, or I could refer them on. I'd hate to have to do that. It's a bridge that we're going to have to cross inevitably.
Right.
I mean, even now people do ask me all the time to help with, causes like the Kashmiri cause, and it's not an issue that I know that much about, and I have to say that, and then I get told, I mustn't really be that much of a good person, and I say I don't know enough about. It's
you have to solve every problem, right?
I have to solve every problem, and I'm like, why isn't that something that you can do? I always put it back to them. I say, maybe that's a cause you can take up. We can't be all things to all people, and that's something that I have had to learn. We have to also evaluate every case on its merits. We wouldn't have the resources to help every case. It would be very unfortunate and very, very heart-wrenching when it gets to that point to make those executive decisions. It feels cold and clinical to think about it, considering that I am such an empath. But as an organisation, I guess we'd have to make those decisions, wouldn't we? But I hope that Safe Exits International will be a beacon of light for many people, right, and that we will, and the overwhelming majority of people we will be able to help, and we'll fall within the ambit in what we can.
Don't say majority, because I don't want you to get disappointed if you can, because I'm worried about the guilt of not being able to help people to really demotivate you. Just remember, even if you just help one person, even if everything you've done leads into helping one person, for that one person, you are their world. Like, so you might think like it's small in the grand scheme of things, given how many people are still in need of help, but to that one person, you are everything, right? That's you giving a new life to that one person. And just remember that. So even one is an accomplishment.
Sage advice.
What?
You've given me sage advice and sage pointers as I traverse this often challenging trajectory that I'm on, rather bold trajectory that I've taken up. And some days I wonder if I'm capable of it. As anyone, I doubt myself. But I will remember when I help even one person that this is something important. And every person that I help matters. And I'll remember not to be so hard on myself, as is my propensity to be, when those trying moments arrive. And I'll remember this conversation, and that Armin said that, you've done well. You've helped people. You can't help everybody. I'll remember your sage and very meritorious words.
Oh, so. Lara, are you estranged from your parents, or are you still in touch with them?
Estranged, yeah.
Estranged. So
I'm not even say no. My dad, I believe, would know about my situation. I would have no idea if my mother would even know what I went through in Pakistan.
Well, I would say that's a shame for them. I think that they missed out on it, because I think most parents would be proud after hearing of everything that you're working on right now, all of the initiatives that you're doing with SCI and the petition. I mean, just the courage to take lemons and not just turn them into lemonade, but turn them to gold like that is just something that I can't imagine any parent not just beaming with pride if their kid did that. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and
the day that they will say I'm proud of.
No, I was going to say I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I'm really, really glad she's going to grow up in a world that has people like you that she can look up to as a role model. So thank you very much.
Ali, I think we, without actually reading the Rational Guard's questions, I think we addressed most of his question. The Canucks, I don't know what's the rest. Canucks, Aram, and the rest. I think a lot of the questions that you're asking, is actually motivating me to have like an episode on the geopolitics of Pakistan at some point, which would be more relevant to the questions that you're asking.
And let me just say one thing, just this, because this is kind of important, because he's talking about when we're talking about Pakistani grooming gangs, and I've heard this come up, the Bachabazi and the pederasty in Afghanistan, the Pashtuns. Pakistan is made up of different ethnic groups that generally can't stand each other. So the Pashtuns are completely separate from the Punjabis. The Punjabis don't want anything.
Aren't they mainly up in the northern areas? The Pushtun are mainly up in the northern areas of Gilgit.
Yeah, they're the northwestern, the bordering Afghanistan.
There's the Balok. I know there's the Balok, and she's in Balochistan. Is that a
Balochistan, and they have a big separatist movement going on. They want to separate.
Right.
So Pakistan is basically a bunch of different ethnicities that have come together that do not want. They're just not united in any way. That's why they don't really have much of a Pakistan.
But they're close. Like they're different, but they're also very similar in ethnicity.
Well, they're but this theoretically, when you look at it from above, it seems like this. Oh, this thing might be connected to this and this, but it's really not. I mean, the pederasty that the Pashtuns do has very little to do with the whole culture among Punjabi Muslims or among people who are in Karachi or that it's a very, very complicated situation. We get into that.
I mean,
later.
to be clear, that what happened to me was in Punjab, so
yes,
obviously I can't extrapolate to any other area of Pakistan necessarily, but
right.
I mean, I can't even.
Yeah, I should also point out the house that you were. It was in Kent, right?
Kent, yes.
Kent, and Kent is a relatively well-off area. I mean, that's where some of a lot of the military families live. So if this isn't something like.
Wasn't in a particularly good part of Kent, though. That there's the Askari areas are the better parts of.
Yeah,
I think that's in Kent. This wasn't. No, this wasn't. Okay. I've been told that this is a rather rough area as well.
Rather city.
Lara, it seems. It seems to me like
Kent.
It seems to me that Lara, that you're already familiar with, given the way you talk about the things that you don't know, which is very admirable. But it seems to me that a lot of people have been using the tactic of telling you that you're not an expert at this or that as a way to demotivate you or a way to say that you shouldn't be doing things, right? Like that's a thing people do. Don't let that get to you. Like seems like you can't start making any difference in the world until you have a PhD in everything possible. Like don't let people tell you that you don't know Pakistan or you don't know politics. Like that's the bullshit. Even if you go get 10 PhDs, they will tell you that you have the wrong PhDs. So don't.
It seems like you already know that, though.
Yeah, so. It seems like you're given some of the answers you're giving. Like, it seems like you have been, attacked like that a couple of times at least, right?
Yeah, I've been told that I'm punching above my intellectual weight a lot of times, and I think I'm entitled as much to my opinion and to being a voice of change as you are. And no, I'm not. I don't have 10 PhDs. I'd actually like just to get one. Maybe that would equip me to be enough of an erudite in one particular field to have an opinion on one particular issue that's valid. Maybe, just maybe. We'll see. But there's always going to be the detractors, and it's something that was really hard to take initially, especially when there's been a lot of love as well. I want to say that I've been so overwhelmed with a lot of love. But when I initially going to the media with my story, and it was very overwhelmed with, you're always going to get detractors. And I've learned to deal with it a lot better and to kind of have a thicker skin and go, you know what? You're not walking in my shoes. You weren't there. It's very easy to be a Monday quarterback and to tell me what you would have done, to say, to victim blame me, but I will rebuke all your attempts to do that. I think it's reprehensible that I'm to blame.
Yeah, usually when people react a certain way, it's like you're going down a straight path, you're doing something, and then more and more people you're having an influence, and then the reason that the reactions happen, if you actually think about it, the reason the reactions happen is because what you're saying is having a big impact. There are people who are listening to what you're saying or reading what you're saying in all these papers, and they're sympathizing with you. And then other people come in, they want to take you off the path and go on to tangents and start getting you embroiled in all these conversations about, well, what about this, what about that, your credibility this, credibility that. And then the more you get veered in those directions, the less. A lot of people, that's where they fall off, right? A lot where they can't take it. They feel like, okay, I can't do this anymore. But it's the people who actually soldier through that.
It's not going to happen anytime soon. I feel that I will soldier on through it. But the issues that I'm talking about are very polarizing. I just had a very, very impactful podcast with Shantazia. We were talking about the blasphemy laws. And these are issues that polarize people. And because all three of us have such strong opinions, and I think we're fairly aligned in our opinions on the blasphemy laws, we're going to attract haters. And I think it's so refreshing to know that I'm not the only one that gets haters, and that we can be stronger than that, and we can't let them derail us just because they say certain buzz terms like racist or whatever term they want to use, whatever the term of the hour is. That's just a hater tactic, and they're going to find, like you said, they're going to find a specific thing about you to tear down your credibility. I'm white. I don't understand the issues. Who am I? Who are you to have an opinion here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. So,
yeah.
Anything you want to add that we should have asked that we didn't?
Let me just check my list. No, I think we've really gone over everything comprehensively. And again, I did want to thank every good Muslim, every good Pakistani person of any creed that helped me. And I really want to thank my team, the British Pakistani Christian Association, headed by our president, Wilson Chowdhury, who is an eminent human rights speaker, winner of the London Peace Prize, among many other awards, for everything that they have done for me and continue to do for me. Our other teammates in Pakistan, in Canada, the UK, we're building up a lot of a support base in Australia. I hope our support base will continue, because I genuinely, thoroughly believe in the works of the British Pakistani Christian Association, which is gradually transitioning into the British Asian Christian Association, because a lot of countries in Asia want our help. So we're going to help a lot more people. But like you said, we can't help everybody, but we're on a pathway to helping, as many as we can within our ambit.
And this is this is a tough thing, because Christians are one of the most persecuted minorities in Pakistan, right? So it's a very, we know the story of Asia Bibi. We actually had Sean on our show as well in the previous episode to discuss it as well. So
and Sean and I had a really good chat about Asia yesterday. It's very impactful and meaningful, and our organisation also contributed to helping Asia a lot, and we're still helping her and still in contact. So we are huge supporters of Asia Bibi.
Right.
And we have a normal and happy life. And she's amazing.
Most of our audience are atheists, but I think most of our audience is also very, and they're not just atheists; they're also humanists, right? And we are against the way that Christians are treated, not just in Pakistan, but also in China, in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, in Iran, treated as second-class citizens. We don't have to belong to a tribe to see the way they're being treated and to speak against it. So thank you for doing that as well.
Thank you. And I love what you guys are doing, and I love what Atheist Republic is doing, and what Secular Jihadists is doing. And I know that it's about you guys are humanists at the core, and I know that and I've seen that you've helped people that are not atheist and not secular, and I have a lot of respect for the work that you're doing. A lot of respect.
That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Lara. Thank you for doing this. This is probably one of the most important episodes that we've done. I've made a note of all the links that you mentioned, all the organizations. We're going to put links to those in the description so that people can go and they can figure out. Yeah, of the public version of this podcast, so you can check it out. And wow, thank you. It's really been an honor to have you here, and your story. It's a nightmare. It's heartbreaking, but at the end, there's something really hopeful and inspiring about what you've done with it, and I think that really, really shines through.
There's a silver lining. There's a silver lining here, and that's what I'm clinging to, and I will continue to use that to propel myself forward. And the pleasure is all mine, Ali and Amen. It has been an absolute pleasure. You guys are amazing. I hope we can continue to work together anytime and talk to you. Want to continue dialogue with you. It's been
absolutely.
I humble myself to you guys. You guys are amazing.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you to everybody, to all the patrons that joined us and all the other ones that couldn't join us. We will try to have more episodes on Sunday mornings our time, because this is not convenient for most people. It's all based on Ellie, so tell Ellie about it. But thank you everybody in the live chat. I know there were some questions that we that we didn't answer, but we will have an entire episode that is about those things. I know people are very curious about Pakistan, especially now, given that India and Pakistan are at each other's throats. So we need to get into geopolitics. So, Ali, let's have like a guest, or if
I think we should bring Sean back actually.
Okay.
He's very
Sean is fantastic.
He's the guy who would know everything. He's been part of the political establishment there. So.
He can answer the questions that I can't. He's so knowledgeable.
Right.
It was an honor to speak to him today.
So we can we can talk about that as well.
Mike in the live chat is saying, "Thank you, Lara. I wish you all the best." And Mars is saying, "Lara, thank you for coming on. Thank you guys for your messages."
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
The secular jihadists have been made possible thanks to the Illuminati and the covert support of Israel and the CIA. That's what we have been told, but we haven't received our checks yet. If you like what we do, please support us. Share the podcast with your friends. Write and tweet us with topic and guest suggestions. Or head over to secularjihadist.com and give $1 or more for exclusive access to live video. Have your questions read and answered on the air, and more. Till next time, may the flying spaghetti monster be with you.